Welcome to Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable AF, a podcast hosted by Nikki D. Lovely. That's really just her diary disguised as a podcast, but who cares? You're here for it. Join in as she addresses her self-reflections on life, love, and dating, and gives us all the tea by being more vulnerable than she ever has, with herself and the world. So let's get started in today's episode with Nikki D. Lovely, already in progress.
Hi, and welcome to Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable as F. I am your host, Nikki D. Lovely. It's basically me talking to me and being as vulnerable as I can be. However, this season, I am trying to bring on some new guests. Next week or the week after, I will be having my friend on, Nicole. She is a single mom. She considers herself a single stay-at-home mom, which is funny because for the longest time, I consider myself a single stay-at-home mom as well. Get started, let me say that I had somebody reach out on my Instagram, and shout out to that person for hitting me up on my Instagram and letting me know that my last podcast really inspired them. And that one, I think, was on ghosting, love bombing. And it made me think that we didn't really delve into love bombing. We didn't really delve into, the science behind it, why people do it. I did give you a love bombing story about the guy who I was dating, who basically took me wherever I wanted to, started talking about getting married very early on. But when I really sat back and thought about it, I was like, how many people go through this love bombing stage and are okay afterwards? We tell ourselves we're okay. Some of us do at least. But then there's some of us who really are not okay. So today I'm going to touch on what to do after you have been love bombed. I want to go over some of the dynamics of love bombing. And then also to anytime we're in these situations, we need to ask ourselves, what are we learning from this, right? So I want to make sure that if you have been love bombed before, you are getting the lessons that you need from that love bombing and applying it so that it doesn't happen again in your next relationship or that next person you date. We want to be able to know why we are falling victim to some of these things. We also want to be able to recognize these things so they don't happen again, and be a better person. If you are the person who's love bombing, sometimes you don't even recognize it, but you may have played a part in it as well, or you may be the love bomber. So let's just kind of take a breather. Let's take a moment and discuss some of those things. So let's start this off first off I love starting off things with a story. I don't know. For me, it's all about what do we learn during the process, and you can't understand what it is I learned if you don't understand where I've been or where you've been, right? So it's important to replay the story. For me, I will say that when I went back and thought about whether or not I had ever been love bombed before, I can truly say that I had been. So it wasn't like this is something that was new to me. If I go back and look at not just what happened between me and the last person I was talking to, the Korean American that I was talking to, where I thought that I had missed the signs because of a culture difference. And that may have been the reason why. Again, I still think that's a big reason why I missed the signs, because I wasn't sure if it was just a culture thing and that, okay, I don't want to say this is a bad thing if this is their culture. If their culture is to say, I know what I want and you're it, and they stick through it, I'm like, well, I've been dating the wrong culture this entire time, baby. I should have been dating Korean American men a long time ago. But honestly, it really did just happen to be another love bomber, just in a different culture. But if I go back and look at it, a lot of the traits were the same. So one of the traits was in the beginning that he was very attentive, very, very attentive. Again, I don't know. A lot of people say that it could be a narcissist thing where they are doing it to be manipulative, or it could be an attachment issue thing where he just wasn't avoidant, which to me, I think it was more of an avoidant thing because, like I said, he also did not tell me any of his emotions coming out. He did not want to talk about anything too deep. He only wanted to future fake and talk about what we were going to do in the future, when we were going to get married, how many kids we were going to have, what kind of wedding I wanted, taking me everywhere I wanted to go. He didn't shower me too much with gifts, but I've seen some people before where they say they've been showered with a lot of gifts. One of the things for sure is the attention, the affection. That person becomes everything that you wish you actually want to be to someone. For once, while you're being love bombed, you feel seen. You feel like this person sees the very core of you. Now, they don't know anything about you, but you still feel seen. Like you just feel somebody so smitten with you. It's kind of, and I've told you this before, it's kind of just like watching one of those romances where you're in a romance novel where if someone is just showering you with love and affection. And I think one of the reasons why we get so enamored with it, even though we know that it could be too good to be true, we've seen a lot of television. We watched a lot of movies. We know how it ends. And it always ends with the two couples typically together at the end and in love. And so we always want that fairy tale ending for us. We want to be able to get on that horse and ride off into the sunset. We want to say, why can't we have our happy ending? And some of us do. And I'm not saying that every time you are in love or every time you feel someone's like smothering you with affection, that is not genuine. It's just that if we really want to be honest with ourselves, sometimes when it is too good to be true, it's because it is. But if it isn't, that means that no matter what we do, or no matter how much time passes, this person will still be there, right? So I think one of the key things is in learning what we need to do for the next time is making sure that we practice boundaries, is making sure that when the next person comes and it's moving too soon, you say, whoa, let's pump the brakes. I understand, like, you have strong emotions. I have strong emotions too, but I would just feel a lot better if we take this a lot slower. I really do like you, but I'm also really trying to fill this out. I want this to go the distance. And for that to genuinely happen, that means I genuinely need to try to get to know you. And I'm not going to get to know you after 1 or 2 dates. Now, I'm going to give you an example. My first time getting ghosted the first time I started dating, I was an avoidant at the time. And as an avoidant, if you don't know what an avoidant is, I was a fearful avoidant, meaning I was scared to get my heart broken. So a lot of times I would run at the thought of someone pushing in too fast, too soon anyway. However, I was still dating at the time, and I do remember this one guy. He was a car dealership owner, one of the first Black ones in Florida, he stated, and he was from France originally. He had moved here when he was 16, and he said that he was discarded and orphaned at a very early age, that he really just had to fend for himself in France, and finally, somehow or another, I don't know how he got over here on a work visa and then decided to stay here in America. Whatever. All I remember hearing in that moment, though, was that he was abandoned. I didn't know anything about abandonment issues, none of that. But I remember thinking, just being the empathetic person that I was at the time, I was like, wow, if I was someone who was 16, who was basically thrown out on the streets by my parents, I would feel some type of way about that. And for me, I would feel like the first person that showed me any type of affection, that I would need to cling on to them. And then I would be scared if they did cling on to me and think that, wow, this person could actually leave me too. Again, hadn't done any research on abandonment issues at the time or anything, but I just had this, it was just like an inkling. Our first date, I remember us going out. We had a really nice dinner. And after it was all over, I remember he hugged me when I got out the car, and he was like, you know what? I really think this is it. Like, I don't need to look any further. Like, I can tell are going to be the love of my life, and we might as well both get off the apps and make this thing happen. Now, first off, if you don't know, avoidance, first off, don't even like to hear any of that type of stuff. If you want to make an avoidant run, tell them how you feel, especially on the first day. But also, he was love bombing me because he didn't know enough about me, even with phone conversations, for us to be in a situation where he just wanted to be with me off of one date. He didn't know enough about me. Now, I'm not saying that I am not a wonderful person to be with. I genuinely believe that I'm going to be a great wife, friend, companion, partner to anyone that I am with. However, I will also say that I would want that person to genuinely get to know me and not just the fact that I could just be anyone there. You know what I'm saying? I still would like for you to try to get to know me. And he didn't really, to me, he didn't put that effort in. So I remember telling him I did not want to, not that I didn't want to, but I just thought it was too soon for us to kind of jump into like this exclusivity thing, like right off the bat. And he got angry. I remember he was angry and he was like, well, if you don't want this, then, then fine. And I remember he just ended the conversation abruptly. And I remember also texting him later and telling him, that wasn't what I meant. It kind of, I think you also get that fear, is that abandonment issue to yourself. It's that fear of being rejected and also letting them know, like, no, I think you took this out of context. That wasn't what I meant. So that's what I did. But I didn't hear from him again, at least for a few months. He did come back out of nowhere because I remember he just hit me up with like some, hey, like he pretended like he had never left. He came back and was just like, hey, how's it going? And I remember thinking in that moment, like, really, this is what we're doing? We're running, we're retreating, we're hiding, and now it's safe. And now I remember this is a good person. And now I remember this somebody I want to be with. And so now I'm going to come back. So it was the love bombing and then the ghosting. The two always tend to go hand in hand. Sometimes the fearful avoidant, anxious attachment will come back to you. It is that dismissive avoidant that I found, they don't come back. Their egos will not allow them to come back once they've left you. Their egos have said, like, she's gone. She's not coming back. I don't expect her to come back. Or I knew she wasn't going to come back, So their ego is like, what do I look like reaching out to that person? So I don't ever expect dismissive avoidance to come back. And usually you can tell based on how they leave. Dismissive avoidance will be conflict averse regardless. I have found that more fearful avoidance will actually kind of talk to you or talk you through it. It's just that the communication that they do give you is very like vague. Like they don't really want to talk about their emotions completely, but if they do let you know something, it's just kind of like, oh, well, I'm really busy right now, or like work has been really bad. They'll have excuses where dismissive avoidance, or I think they call it dissociative avoidance, will be like, it's just like a big red cutoff. You're not going to hear from them ever again, and don't even worry about trying to think about seeing them again. If you do, it's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 years down the line. I used to be a fearful avoidant, but to a certain point, I was borderline dismissive as well, only from the standpoint of my ego would never let me go back and apologize to anybody. As an avoidant, I was stuck in my past because I hadn't got rid of the trauma and the anxiety and the angst and all the abandonment issues that I had. I hadn't done any of that work. And when you haven't done your work, you carry that into each relationship. And that's what happens with avoidance. They're basically carrying it into every relationship. But anyway, I didn't mean to go off onto the avoiding tangent. What I really want to do is go back to the love bombing. Well, I mean, they did go hand in hand because, as I said, you need to know your attachment style because you have your love bombing and then you have your ghosting too. So now that we've gone over some of the love bombing, let's go over the reason why a lot of people fall for it and why you may have fallen for some of the love bombing yourself. I would say, again, the reason why I fell for the love bombing with the guy I was talking to, because I thought it was a cultural thing. Let's talk about some of the reasons why you may fall for it. And it's, for one, I believe it's because you feel seen, right, for the first time. A lot of us need it for validation. When you have somebody who seems to be very into you for whatever reason, it does give you kind of a stroke of confidence, right? You feel validated. Maybe you weren't validated as a child from your parents. Maybe you were, and you like that validation, and you haven't felt that validation in a while. For whatever reason it is, because you needed that sense of validation. Another thing is we like the people that we become with them. We're able to fantasize. We're able to see ourselves in these houses. It's not even the person so much as the fantasy that you've created with this person in your head. I've seen myself getting married. When he started talking about marriage, I can see my wedding. Do I want a wedding on the beach, or do I want a courthouse wedding, or do I want a small wedding? I hadn't even really thought about that. So that actually got me thinking about, weddings and love. And I think I imagined having a house, and I actually started thinking about having some more kids, and I'll send them to private school and it'll just be nice. So I too created this fantasy world that a lot of us is kind of hard to live in, and especially as a creative. I'm a creative. I'm really good with my imagination. Women are great with their imagination. We can create anything. The mind is an amazing thing, but it can also be a bad thing when you are trying to get to know somebody, especially when it comes from a love bombing state with someone who is not very serious. So that is basically it in terms of, one of the reasons why you fell for it. The fairy tale expectations, the trauma bond. Like I said, this happened before, and your validation needs. We already went behind the psychology of it. I think it's important for us to kind of make sure that this doesn't happen again for you if you are a victim of love bombing. Some of the things that we know we need to look out for now that we've been in this situation is the over-the-top gestures way too soon. I'm going to have to give you this story. I told it on my threads. I'm going to tell it here. I was basically invited out to San Diego to meet with this older gentleman who I'm going to say he was twice my age. He was basically my father's age. And I've never dated anybody that old. However, at the time, he was a really nice person. I said, I won't knock it at least till I try it. I've tried it. I don't think I'm going to ever do it again. But it did teach me a lesson, because when we were out, one of the first things he said was, come to my house. I want to show you my house. He had a beautiful house that was on the beach. And he was like, when you come back again, this would be your guest room. It was a very nice house. And if I had this thing in my brain where I didn't feel like I could do any of this myself, then I may fall into this grandeur of oh, I could live here, or oh, I could be with this guy. And when we went out to eat, he told me, he was like, I'll take care of you, and anything that you want, I'll make sure that you get. I'll make sure that you have it. When we left the restaurant, he goes, do you want to go on a trip? Anywhere you want to go, just let me know. Anytime you want to take off. Do you want to go on a trip with me next week? I'll make sure everything's taken care of. Do you want to take these art classes with me? I'll make sure we get it done. The love bombing is the expensive trips, the gifts, the deep confessions of, oh, it's so great to talk to someone like this. I haven't had this in so long. It's really hard to find people like you. You're amazing. Those all feel good. They feel good. So most people are going to be okay with that in the beginning. It may be too good to be true, but if you really think very well of yourself, you're also going to be like, well, yeah, of course you're going to like me. I am a catch, So those are those things that you need to make sure that you watch out for the next time. It's not that they could be genuine. However, you need time. It shouldn't be the first week, the first month, or 2 months. And you can't just let them tell you what they want to do for you. You need to be able to see it. The extreme urgency is another thing to make sure that we watch out for. I've never felt this way before. Let's move in together. Hey, if you come here, this is going to be where you're going to live. I'll make sure I take care of you. Do you want to go on a trip next week? The extreme urgency. It was like, come with me next week. Everything needed for me to be really quick and soon. I've noticed, even with the guy from France, it was get off of all the dating apps right now, right? It's just me and you. Very scary when you think about it. What's the urgency? And the urgency most likely is, if you really get to know me and you really get to see who I am, there's a possibility you could abandon me, which is also why we have the ghosting, because they want to make sure that they ghost you first. Okay. Another point we probably need to make sure that we talk on is the future faking, which is kind of like in the situation with the older gentleman. He tells me, if you decide to come, this would be your place. And he did do a lot of future faking, because even when we were talking on the phone, he'd be like, if we decide to make this a thing, I'll take you here and we can do this and we can go to this place, He had already had a lot of things in his head of things that we could do together, and he made sure to let that be known. Also, like in my first guy, it was very much of the wedding and all that. So we all know what future faking is. The excessive compliments that feel kind of unnatural because a person doesn't know you. Oh my gosh, you're really beautiful. We should buy a house together. I had that with the anxious attachment guy. He was doing a lot of future faking. And then the pulling away just as fast. So like they throw it on you, throw it on you, throw it on you. And then the next thing you know, they're gone. So the same thing happened with the older guy. He hit me up immediately because I didn't spend the night with him. I left. He wanted me to spend the night. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to go home tonight. And the next day he texts me. He's like, you know what? I'm not sure this is going to work out. I need somebody who's closer to me. And I know that was probably his abandonment issues or because I didn't say anything to him. I just said I wasn't going to spend the night with him. But in that moment, it was kind of like, oh, maybe she's not feeling me. I might as well just bow out while I still can. So again, that's that avoidant attachment style, or it could also be an anxious attachment style too, because both can actually do that. If you feel very anxious, you kind of self-sabotage too. So those are your common signs of love bombing that you're going to need to be responsible for looking out for so that this doesn't happen to you again. I think we should get into why people love bomb, because some of us may not be the ones that are on the receiving end. Maybe some of us are the ones that give it, right? Have you been guilty of also love bombing? If someone, do you give a lot? It's a control and manipulation thing. It's, again, let me see how much I can do in the front end so that you don't find out who I really am and you're attached to what I can do for you. Not so much who I am, who you think I am because I'm a giver and you create this fantasy in your head, but not who I really am, right? Again, it's the insecure attachment styles. You have your avoidant versus your anxious. It's that constant push and pull. The anxious wants more attention. The avoidant wants to leave. And avoidants too can do a lot of love bombing in the front because they do genuinely want love and affection. So they are going to give you a lot. You may be that person who is where you think you wear your heart on your sleeve until that other person wears their heart on their sleeve. And then you're like, oof, I don't know if I really should be doing this. I don't know if this person's the one. There are so many people in the sea. What if this is not my person? I don't want to make this decision right now. I think I'm going to leave. And there are some attachment styles that actually kind of get confused with ADHD as well. ADHD has a lot of things. I have ADHD where I get to the point where I can be overwhelmed with people and I just need a break. And that break can also come across, even though I'm not avoidant anymore, it can come across as being avoidant to people. I just need to reset my people meter. I just can't be around. It drains me. It genuinely drains me, right? Some people love bomb for ego boosts. They're love bombing because they can see that they kind of got you swooning. And it's an ego boost to see that somebody's really into you, whether you're that person or not. And again, they know that you're eventually going to find out that you're not that person. But, maybe too, you're being this sweet person because it's an ego boost and you see how you have this person wrapped around your finger. It's not very nice. It's very manipulative. And last but not least, some people love bomb because of unresolved childhood wounds where love was conditional. They could only have love if they gave, which is why they're giving in the beginning. They're giving you their attention. They're giving you their affection. They're giving you all those compliments. It's a people-pleasing thing because they came around parents who required that they be the adult in the situation or that they calm the peace. It's kind of like, don't poke the bear. Make sure everything's cool. How do I make sure everything's cool? I'm going to compliment this person. I'm going to compliment my father when he walks in. I'm going to make sure everything's clean. I'm going to make dinner as a gift, as a present. All of those things are patterns that we learn in childhood that unfortunately, even though we're adults now, we still kind of create our own dynamics with people, even as adults. We can't allow that childhood pattern to leave. So if you're one of those people who love bomb, think about those 4 things. Maybe those may be some of the reasons why you love bomb, or maybe if you have been love bombed, these may be some of the reasons why your love bomber love bombed you, if they were even open or vulnerable enough to tell you anything about their childhood, right? And I'm going to end it with how to protect yourself. And the way that I have found is, I think is very important that when you start seeing the signs, you immediately put those boundaries up. You immediately say, okay, this is cool. I like you. I don't know if I like you enough to cut off all people. I don't know if I like you enough to give you back everything that you're giving me right now. But I'm intrigued. I'm interested. And you'll see right away that person may scatter. Checking to see if they're vulnerable enough. Two, like how much are they willing to open up? A lot of people who have those childhood issues or who are doing it to be manipulative, they aren't really open to being vulnerable. And I'm not saying just telling you a story about their childhood, even though that is vulnerable for some people. It's how do they tell the story about their childhood? Is it like blank, where they're just like everything's matter of fact? Or do they actually feel when they tell it? That's actually being vulnerable in a moment, allowing you the space to be vulnerable. Do they open up for you to be vulnerable? That's key. Not just telling you what you want to hear, but telling you the things that you might not want to hear about them. And also allowing you the space to just be truly authentic about who you are and where you are. The other thing is we want to do is we want to make sure we trust the timing of things, allow things to pan out. I say you have 3 to 4 months with me. And then after that, it's smooth sailing because we can let our hair down, take our hats off, I get to see you, you get to see the real me, and then we can decide whether or not we still want to do this. But then at that point, I feel like, you can only keep up those masquerading masks for so long. You want to watch for inconsistencies, big words with very little action. When I went out with the older guy, he kept telling me what he wanted to do. And then the very next day, he was like, I don't think it's going to work. So he made all these promises of things that he wanted to do. I didn't get there in time enough for him to do, I guess, some of the things that he really wanted to do. Maybe if I had gotten there earlier, maybe he could have taken me out to buy things. Maybe I shot my own self in the foot. I don't know. But at the same time, he didn't even give it any more of a chance once he thought, I was kind of out. Also, don't mistake the intensity for intimacy, which is what a lot of us do. The rush to do things creates intensity. And that's a false sense of intimacy. You think like, it's a 6-hour date. He really likes me. He's trying to create this intensity. He's trying to put all of the time that could have been spread out over multiple dates over 3 or 4 months into one to get you to like him very early on. Or her. This doesn't just happen from men to women. It happens to men too from women. So I want to make sure that I'm not just being one-sided here. But at the same time, I also want you to make sure that you don't mistake the intensity for intimacy. True intimacy is built over time. Intensity is really just going to be lust. I really don't care what you say in the beginning. You guys lusted over each other. Maybe it turns into love later after you got to know each other. But that general attraction in the beginning is not intimacy per se. Number one thing, too, is to set your boundaries. We've said this. Healthy relationships take time. Put those boundaries up, people. Don't be afraid. And don't be afraid to walk away. That's number one. I've gotten to this point now where there's a saying they say, we don't chase, we attract. We don't chase, we attract. And that's where I am right now. There's no chasing. We're not running after people. We're okay to walk away. We're okay to ghost them before they ghost us. I don't believe in ghosting. I do believe in saying how we feel and talking through things, which is quite all right. We can talk through things. We can let people know how we feel. I think it's very important that we talk through things and let people know how we feel. But I also think it's very important that we stay true to ourselves and we're not afraid to walk away when we know something doesn't feel right. So if you're talking through something and the person's not willing to talk through it and they still want to just shower you with gifts and get you to spend the night, even though you told them several times, I don't want to spend the night. If you were really, truly honest about everything you said, we have plenty of time to do this, right? Doesn't have to happen the first night. Those are manipulation tactics, and you do need to be very careful. One thing I haven't thought about is people who get ghosted or manipulated or love bombed and actually have sex or make love or do the do. We're grown, I guess. I haven't thought about those people who've done the do with these love bombers. I have never gotten to a point where I've been with a love bomber and done something with them. Wait, I'm lying. I did have one. I had one love bomber, but he didn't come on super strong. I think it was just a whirlwind romance for both of us. We were both trauma bonding. And in the fact that we both had abandonment issues, and then we were both we jumped in way too soon, too fast. So sometimes that does happen. You trauma bond, love bomb. which is you think is love, but you're really trauma bonding. He has an old abandonment issue or wound. You have a old issue or wound. You guys discuss what you're both looking for, what you're not looking for based on those wounds and those trauma bonds. And then you get together and then you realize later on, oh, wait, this really isn't a fit. We were getting together off of the completely wrong merit. We really don't have anything in common right now. If we had sat down and really addressed the issues and not just talked about, the lust that we had for each other, we would have determined very early on that this wasn't going to work out. That all being said, love bombing is very emotional, and I don't want you to fall victim to it again. I don't want you to be victim yourself or to creating this for someone else or the perpetrator in this situation. And so a lot of times, what I'll tell you, I am a very huge advocate of therapy. If you have not been in therapy, I think it's important. I don't think a lot of people know that if you have insurance, your insurance typically covers it. Even if it's not the therapist you're going to now, you may find a better therapist through your insurance, but go through your insurance and at least see. Your state-run insurance has it. Everyone's supposedly supposed to have insurance at this point, so your mental health should be taken care of. There's no reason why you can't go talk to someone. Make sure you talk about your attachment issues. Make sure you ask yourself, why did I fall for the love bombing? Why am I love bombing? Why am I trauma bonding? All of those things are important to know so that this doesn't happen again. The more you know about why you do things, the more you know about yourself, the better off you're going to be when you actually get into a relationship, if that's what you're looking for. If that's not what you're looking for, then, more power to you. Go ahead and be the piss in the pool that already is. But if you want something better, you need to do better yourself, which is why I say definitely go take yourself to therapy. Talk to someone has a listening ear. I think even Fiverr has, you could talk to somebody for 30 minutes if you need to, just to get something off of your chest. You never know. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I need you to take control of your life by doing whatever it is that you need to do, however it is that you need to do it. Okay. That all being said, do you have a ghosting story yourself, or do you have a story where you were love bombed yourself? And how did you break free from it? How did you survive it? And what did you learn about yourself? All three of those things are very important for you to move on. However, it's easy. So maybe hit me up. Let me know. My Instagram is Nikki D Lovely on Instagram. I also have a Threads up now where I do a lot of my dating stories because, your girl started dating again. We're looking out for the love bombing and the ghosting and all that good stuff. But yeah, if you guys have a story, make sure you come on my Instagram, share it with me. I look forward to hearing it. Maybe I'll even share it on my next podcast. And until then, you guys, we are done talking about love bombing. Get out. Hopefully that helped you in some sense or way. That was my first time actually just going off on something that I'm actually completely over. Now that I'm doing this season, last 2 years have just been about me being me and being vulnerable on here. But these next few episodes, I want to start giving value to you based on what I learned, so that maybe if you're going through that same thing, it can help you. Okay. And that's what we're here for. We all in this together. And until next week, guys, I will see you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hello Me, It's Me with Nikki D Lovely. Just remember, you can't change who you were yesterday, but you can always learn and grow to become a better version of yourself today. So make sure you do the mental work today for the future you tomorrow, and I will see you next week. And in the meantime, make sure that you check me out on my Instagram at Nikki D Lovely or _broke_mama. You can also find me at nikkidlovely.com and check out my book, No F Boys Allowed. I also have a poetry book coming out pretty soon, so just a little shameless plug. But either way, I will see you guys next time, and thanks again.